everybody. Welcome back to Monday Morning Mojo. I'm Anna Gibbs, and I am really excited today because I have Annie Yatch with us. And I had the pleasure of connecting and meeting Annie at the Go Abundance Women's Retreat back in May. And I couldn't wait to get her on the show to share more of what she does with all of us. So, Annie is a former counter-terrorism analyst turned elite performance coach for billionaires, CEOs, and special operation leaders. She's trained in business intelligence, neuroscience, and advanced energy work. Annie helps high performers do what strategy alone never could, eliminate the internal patterns that quietly cap their success. Her work bridges future-focused action plans with deep nervous system and identity rewiring, unlocking more money, stronger leadership, and healthier relationships at the highest levels. When it comes to Annie, expect precision, depth, and insights that permanently shift how you lead, decide, and perform. Welcome, Annie, to Monday Morning Mojo. I am so happy you're here.
I am so excited to be here. I couldn't wait.
Me too. So we did meet at the retreat and you did an amazing session for all of us. We'll get into that in a couple of minutes. And I have often said on this show, and I believe, energy is everything. And I want to, just because we introduced you as a former counter-terrorism analyst turned elite performance coach. So maybe you can expand a little bit on your trajectory and how you went from that profession to what you do today.
Well, it makes a little bit more sense when you look at it from this viewpoint, right? But anyone who met me back then would have been like, you did what now? Basically, back in my counterterrorism days, I was obsessed with keeping the country safe. And I went to school at Georgetown, School of Foreign Service. And then I was invited into this, at the time, very elite security studies program where they bring people back from the field who have been doing just incredible work in intelligence and counterintelligence. And that was back during the days of, us really tracking counterinsurgency groups and tracking, the terrorist networks all across the world. And I was being recruited to work with the agency. And one of the things that was interesting in that conversation, the CIA, was I just realized, I'm like, I really can't lie. I am like, it's not my thing. Everything is written on my face. I can't lie. I love people so much that I think it would probably crush my soul if I had to leave somebody in country. And so
Right.
I worked with a couple of my friends who are in the agency, and they're just like, you know what, if you can do something else. And so my career began as being obsessed with the neurochemistry and the way the brain works and the way behavior works and what you notice about people when you watch them. But it became much more about how do I take how the brain works and optimize now primarily female business owners' success. Because one of the things that has always sort of hurt my heart a little bit is I've always been hired very quickly by male business owners because they're like, you showed me something that's wrong with my brain. I know you're going to fix it for me. Let's go. Right? Because it's a business expense. But for women, it's a bigger lift, right? So women will be like, well, I don't know if I'm worth that investment. I don't know if I can do it at this time, even though they're making millions through their business. So it's been my personal mission. We've got to get more women to get the support they need to take them to the next level.
I love that. Why do you think it is hard for women to invest in themselves or to recognize, and I agree with you, which is why I too have really gotten clear about working with women in the last couple of years. Why do you think it's such a challenge for them to say yes to something that can help them or unblock something?
Well, I would say there are probably two reasons. The first reason I found is that most women are thinking about everybody else and what they have to contribute for everybody else first. And so that takes them out of thinking about what they need as the primary. And I think the second piece of it is what I've seen from working with extremely high caliber female business owners is that there is a self-worth issue that is pervasive across these powerhouse women. It's like a lack in belief in what they can achieve outside of the business professional world. And they also have never had someone have their back no matter what. They've had to have their own back. And so it's a complete paradigm shift that we're asking for in getting these women to be willing to invest in themselves and invest in somebody else having their back. So
Yeah.
it really is different. For most men, they've already invested in many men having their backs in different ways. And so it's not as foreign of a concept.
I think you make a good point there for sure. What do you love most about what you do? What's the most gratifying part of any of the work that you do?
Oh my God, the best part, bar none, is when you watch somebody's brain shift in that moment and you realize that they're going to be happier than they've ever been because of
Hmm.
the change that you brought in with them.
Yeah.
So I think for me, it's watching the person not only like get the bigger deals, right? I had a client the other day who called me. She's like, "We got a $20 million deal because of that thing you told me to do last week." And I was like, "That's what I'm talking about." You know,
Everybody's going to want to know what's the thing? What's the thing?
I know, but that's literally what makes me the happiest is you make one tiny little change in the brain, but that change is pervasive. It changes
Oh,
behavior, it changes
yeah.
action, everything.
That's probably why I gravitated to you and what, the energy work you did with us at the retreat, because I believe in it. I'm always looking for ways to continue to move past the things that hold us back. And that may come as a surprise to someone listening because I am a coach, but coaches need coaches too. We're taking on a lot of energy and we're working with a lot of people. So I think that we hold on to things that we don't even intend to hold on to. And
100%.
so let's talk about that because I know you work with a lot of high level leaders who are leading, maybe other coaches and consultants. So for someone listening who is maybe new to the term energy work, let's start to help them understand what it is that you do.
So, one of the big things that I do that I think is really the biggest contributor to people's success is we look at any thought pattern or any big emotion that charges them up and takes them out of response. So, if an emotion makes you reactive, it's not helpful for making decisions in business or in your personal life. And most of us, no matter what everybody tells us, we're not emotional masters yet. Almost everyone I've ever met has something that triggers them, right?
Yeah.
So when there's an emotion that you haven't worked through, it means that that emotion not only is happening in the moment, but it's happening all the way back in your entire timeline to something that happened to you as a kid that you've never processed, which means that emotion is directing how you think, how you make decisions, how you act, how you respond. And we don't want an emotional feeling from when you were 5 to be in the room with you when you're making a decision in the boardroom.
Yeah, and it can happen often.
Happens all the time because 97% of our brain is run by the subconscious.
Yes.
So really, we think we're adults making decisions in business, but a lot of it comes from that younger self, that 7-year-old who's making decisions that we're not even aware of.
Yes. Something that maybe a lot of people aren't aware of, because I just recently went into a little bit of a career shift, but I've been an NLP practitioner for a long time. And through that process, I learned something that you just talked about, timeline therapy. And I think for a lot of people, when they hear inner child work or, going back to really examine the experiences that we've had and what we've learned from that, it makes people uncomfortable. So, how do you help people really embrace this and feel ready to do the work?
I think the key thing I've noticed for men and women is that first session with me, I show them the pattern that they've been living in that they haven't been able to see.
Yeah.
Once you see the pattern, which most people haven't seen their whole lives, and they understand there's a process for interrupting that pattern and changing the brain, the way the brain functions, more men and women are willing to take that leap, right? I think that they have to have the experience first and see it for themselves. Otherwise, that emotional work doesn't feel like it's going to be fun. I did a lot of NLP work too in the past and I love it. But there's this piece of NLP that they translated into some ancient Hawaiian work, which moves energy really quick. And for a
Yeah.
lot of people, it's scary to go through the logical, intellectual process of something like this. But if it's energetic, then it blows it out of them pretty quickly because of the energy transfer. So that's why a lot of the people like doing the energy work because they don't have to think through it. They basically can just show up, listen to my voice, and in less than 20 minutes, that thing is removed. And so it's an interesting thing to watch, right? But there is always trepidation. There's always a little bit of bravery that's needed before you go
Yeah.
into this type of healing work.
Yeah. So maybe you can help someone listening understand a little bit about the modality. Is it when you're working with someone and coaching them, is it through meditation, breath work?
So when I first started about 15 years ago, a lot of what I put together were proprietary modules based on active things that I was using with clients. And that was based on what I learned about how the brain works from my time with the Navy SEAL teams. So that was sort of the first iteration. So I've got like 25 to 30 tools there to rewire the subconscious, conscious mind. But the emotional piece was something I learned from ancient Hawaiian training called Huna. And what that does is it basically helps the body, the subconscious or unconscious mind, release thought patterns that it's been holding on to for 40 years, or even emotions it's been holding on to for 40 years. So, for example, the other day, there's a woman I worked with. She wanted to launch a program. She's been trying for a year to launch this program. Crickets, no interest. And so she came to me and she's like, what is the problem here? Why am I not able to launch this program? So we dug into her subconscious. We identified a thought pattern she had from when she was 6 that told her that if she really became well known, she would be harmed. And so we rewired that pattern. Next thing you know, she's selling her courses for $10,000 a course, literally month 2 after doing this work. And she's like, finally something clicked. She's like, I wasn't being held back by that feeling or that thought. She's like, and money started rolling in. She's like, this is crazy town. And I'm like, no, it's not. It's what happens when we let go of something that the 5-year-old or 6-year-old or 7-year-old is running inside of our own body. And we let the adult.
Yes. Yeah, I mean, those subconscious patterns can really keep us sort of stuck.
Yes.
And we
Really.
need someone who can help us unlock that. And, a lot of my listeners have accomplished a lot professionally, yet I'm going to guess that they're feeling pretty exhausted on a daily basis. How do you help, right?
Yeah.
How do you help someone determine whether they're simply overworked or maybe a little burnt out or something deeper is going on?
As weird as it sounds, there is this concept around exhaustion that I would love to mention here. So we all think we're exhausted. The reason I found that entrepreneurs are exhausted is not always because of a traumatic patterning in the brain or an issue with an emotion that they have to release. Sometimes it goes back to one of these other two things. Sometimes it goes back to their neurochemistry. Most people have lower neurochemistry, so lower serotonin, lower dopamine, lower oxytocin than they should because their microbiome is offline. And so I have a company that I work with that calms the system so much that it reactivates the neurochemistry to produce more serotonin, more dopamine, more oxytocin. So a lot of what we experience as exhaustion, it's not just from a traumatic pattern, it can actually be from a neurochemical system in their brain that isn't firing the way it should. And so that's something that you can resolve by calming the nervous system first. And then I'll use that company's technology to do that with people. So it's sort of this cool combination of, we know that some traumatic stuff is going to happen, but really that combination of fixing the neurochemistry and fixing the past patterns that don't serve you or the past thought patterns or emotions, that combination is really what makes it very unique.
So you touched on something I think that is also probably worth exploring a little more, because I know you do a lot of work around nervous system regulation. So again, for someone who's never heard that term before or has but doesn't really understand what it means, and maybe you can explain that a little bit, but more importantly, why we should care about it.
Okay, so why should you care about it if you're listening? Well, if anyone listening has not been able to sit and meditate for 10 minutes at a time, this is why we need this, right? So most of us as entrepreneurs, our brains are running 100 million data points a second, right? We're constantly trying to do more and be more and create more and help our teams grow. Nervous system deficit, when the nervous system is offline or when you're in fight or flight in the nervous system, means that all of your decisions are being made from fight or flight as well.
Right.
So when you make decisions from fight or flight, or you respond to something from fight or flight, you're never making the best choice for the long-term gain. You're making the best choice to get you relief in the moment now. So for a lot of entrepreneurs, we get stuck in a cycle of making decisions based on urgency rather than based on the inner alignment of what you know that will propel you forward. So the reason why I think nervous system work is so important, and I've tracked it now, I have one client who tracks it like a crazy person because he's like, you need to tell people this more often. When he came to me, he was capped at 25 million in revenue. He couldn't increase past 25 million. And in 1 year of calming his nervous system, he's now upwards of 50 million.
Wow.
And he's like, Annie, the difference was calming my brain. He's like, I'm making decisions now. I'm seeing gaps in business I never saw before because I was so reactive. And as business owners, we're often very reactive because, again, we're in that fight or flight that was based off of the little kid brain
Yeah.
running way too fast for our adult self.
I think too, a lot of times people convince themselves, well, this is just how I am. This is just the way I
That's how it
operate.
is.
Right. It's just how it is. Or I've even had some people who I think wear it almost as a calling card. And how do you help someone break through that? Because I think that really does keep them in a box.
Well, I think a lot of people are afraid that if they let go of this, running and grinding and hustling at a high level, they're going to lose their edge. But what actually happens is you don't lose the skill set. You just lose, or you let go of that version of you that's scared and in fight or flight driving your bus. So I think the key thing to remember is you're not ever going to lose the edge of the skill sets you've built. You're not losing that mental edge. You're actually gaining the calm, the neutral from where you can respond. So what I always say is I'm like, basically you're telling the little 7-year-old, hey, I love you. I love that you're here, but you can't drive the bus because you're only 7. So you put
That's
the
right.
the back seat and you're like, now my adult self with all my wisdom, all my courage, all my compassion, all of my skill sets, now that self is driving the bus. That is where you see the biggest change in business. You have people go from, I saw people capped at everything from 10 grand a month, 30 grand a month, 750,000 a month, 2 million a month, and they literally break through these levels that they thought they would be stuck at, but those were the levels that were being run by that little 7-year-old.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting too because to your point, we would never let the 6-year-old drive, right? But yet subconsciously we don't realize we're operating from that place. I think another place a lot of leaders operate from, again, probably many subconsciously, they're operating from that scarcity or survival mindset rather than a place of real authority. And I know you talk a lot about that. So, how can someone recognize where they might be or what might be happening with them?
Sure. If you're in survival mindset, you feel like there's a lot of urgency. You feel like you're
Mm.
always behind. You feel like by the end of the day, you don't feel satisfied with what you've completed. You typically feel like you can't really be present when you're in environments that are social because you're always on your own agenda of what do I have to get done? What did I miss? Survival authority also looks like you not being able to delegate effectively. You hand tasks off, but they don't get done the way you want when you want them to be completed, and you're constantly having to step back in. Also, there's a piece of micromanaging that comes into that survival way of doing things. Authority looks very different. Authority is you trust in what you're delegating to the person because you have a system, you have a process. You have higher levels of confidence because you're not reacting. You're responding and you're taking the time to respond. You complete every day and you feel extremely satisfied because you're like, I got so much done, even more so than I normally would, but I feel calm doing it and there's no pressure to get things done. So it's a very different way of leading. One way keeps you in the scarcity and your revenue stays stuck. The other way totally transforms how you do and see your business and how you feel, which for me as
Yeah.
an entrepreneur, why are we going after all this freedom in entrepreneurship to feel like shit, excuse my language, when we finally get
Yeah.
somewhere that feels everyone else thinks is successful?
Right. And I think too, a lot of times we think we put on the expectations of the world on ourselves, and we believe that there are these expectations that other people have of us. And so that means we're supposed to be perfect, we're supposed to be polished. Even the word authority, I'm sure a lot of leaders would have a different definition the way you just described it.
Well, a lot of leaders carry the mask, right? So they wear the
Hmm.
mask of what they think everybody else wants them to be as a leader. Instead of
Hmm.
figuring out, well, what is my particular leadership style? How do I do this in the way that helps me feel really good every day and enjoy what I'm doing? Once you make that change, that's what I love most about this work is that once somebody feels that way, they're like, how have I not been doing the business this way?
Right.
Because they could have been suffering. A lot of people suffer for 5 to 10 years before they realize if I just had a coach, maybe things would be different because ultimately it always comes down to us. We're the ones creating our own reality and our own suffering. And a
Yes.
lot of that question you asked me before about exhaustion,
Yeah.
the exhaustion most of us feel comes from, and this is sort of a funny concept, it comes from the fact that when we are suffering in life, it means that we're living in a subconscious lie. So a lot of suffering, a lot of exhaustion comes from playing out a story that's not true. When we're in our truth and we are living in that truth, life feels easy, life feels good, life feels satisfying. But most people think in their minds, how can it be this good? It can't be this good all the time. And then they redirect themselves back into
Right. They're
suffering.
waiting for the shoe to drop.
Correct. And for a
Yes.
lot of multi-millionaires, they hit a very high level and they're like, oh my God, when am I going to lose it all? And
Sure.
that's almost always when they call me because they're like, I want to make sure I don't lose it all. And I'm like, well, let's work through that, right? And that's when a lot of rewiring can happen.
Yeah. Oh, I talked to you for hours. I geek out on the brain. So how, yes, I know we've been in common. So how long have you been doing the work now, Annie?
So I've been a coach for 15 years,
Hmm.
but this very specific type of coaching, I started really going after it about 7 years ago. This
What was
combination of
the,
neurochemistry and the neurochemistry and the traumatic patterning.
what was the shift for you? What created that clarity?
Probably the first 7 years, the 15 years, I was hyper focused on leadership training and working with teams. But what I saw was that you could train up the team to be absolutely fantastic as in an executive team, but then the CEO would jump back in doing all the survival type leadership moves, and the whole team would be thrown off. So the
Yeah.
team would be hyper productive, doing amazing, then the CEO would jump in, and I started realizing,
I call that seagull leadership.
oh
They
yeah,
fly in and they shit all over the place and then they leave. And
yeah.
everyone is like, ah.
And people don't know, is this work direction? Is this just a random venting session?
Yeah.
Like, where are we
And
going with this?
I will say this too. The leader in this example honestly doesn't even realize what they're doing.
No, they're
I
on
don't want to paint them
autopilot.
out to be irresponsible because that's
They're
not usually the case, right?
no, they're on autopilot. Their 7-year-old is driving the bus there,
Right.
and
Here it is.
they don't even know what's happening. That's why I think when you watch that happen to team after team, and you start to realize, I need to go after helping the CEO first, so that the CEO does not do seagull leadership swooping in and causing problems that they don't even know they're causing. If
Right.
we make the CEO better, then we make everybody else better. It's
Yeah.
just such a natural, and the CEO will attract people into the business that either maintain the survival pattern,
Hmm.
or once they up level, they will only attract people in that are in that new pattern, that new way of thinking. So it's just, if you want your business to scale, if you want your business to grow, this work is non-negotiable from my perspective. Has
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, that's why I was excited to have you on the show to share this with the people who are listening because I agree with you. And I think there's a lot well we operate from similar beliefs and there's a lot of parallels to our background. Well, I didn't work for the CIA. That I
That's
have to be
okay.
honest.
Well, I
But
didn't either. I worked for the Defense Intelligence Agency, but I did not
oh,
work.
okay. Well, okay. I wasn't doing anything like that either. But yeah, there's a lot of parallels in the work we're doing today, or even where you started, probably compared to what I'm doing today. But what I wanted to talk about is I've been coaching now for 16 years, and I know that it's an opportunity for me to grow and expand through the work that I do with others. So, talk a little bit about that. What have you been able to witness in your own growth over the last several years, maybe especially in these last 7 years, 8 years that you've been doing this work for you? What has really transpired for you personally?
I gotta say, so much, we don't have a ton of time talking about it all, but I'll tell you a couple of big things.
Yeah.
Number one, I realized that I wasn't really here to do things in the background. I was here to be a little bit more forward facing. And so in the past 3 businesses that I built with my ex-husband, I was always taking a step back and being like, no, 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 I want you to shine. I'll take care of all these things behind the scenes so that it runs beautifully, but I want you to be the person out front. And, over time, we went through growing through businesses together. And then I went through a divorce because I just reached a point where I realized I'm like, this is not the way it's supposed to be for either one of us. I wanted both of us to be really happy. And so that was a huge change for me. And that's where I really started shifting things because you can't coach people in something that you haven't done. Like I'm one of those people that have to embody it fully. Otherwise, I cannot
Agree.
realistically teach any of it.
I agree. You can't sell the water you don't drink, right? You have to drink the water yourself. So,
You have
yeah.
to drink it every day. And
Yeah.
so that, for me, the divorce was the biggest change point because then I started really embodying who I was and all the work I had done. And I was unapologetic about it because I'm like, you know what, if I can go through some of the hardest things that we experience in life and I can still be peppy and happy and work through things and be, feeling like a lighthouse in all that I do. I'm like,
Yeah.
pretty powerful place to be. And so
Well,
that's
and we are best suited to serve the people who are struggling with something we've already overcome or that we've grown through or learned. So, that's a message for anyone listening to really think about, right? What have you experienced in life and where have you learned and persevered and overcome that you now have a different vantage point to help someone else?
yes.
And then on the flip side of that, I love people who are teaching leadership or coaching on leadership, and yet they may not even know what leadership really is.
Well, my favorite one is when somebody coaches on like financial empowerment or making like really great money, but that person hasn't made really great money. Right in the background of their story isn't about making really great money. So I think you really want to look for a coach that's in a place that is where you want to be mentally, emotionally, and physically. I think
Yes.
if you have
Well,
a coach that
uh,
embodies that, then you're in a good place.
yeah, and I felt that when we met. So let's talk about that as we probably are getting close to running out of time. But where can someone find you if they are intrigued by what you've talked about here today and the work that you do? And feel free to share anything more about that I haven't asked.
Sure. The way to find me is through Instagram right now. I'm about to be launching Annie Unlocks Your Edge on TikTok in just a month here, so that'll be exciting. But on Instagram, so it's reinventionxo.annie because we can all reinvent ourselves at any time, in any year, at any age. But I think the one thing I would say to the people who are listening is if you want to take yourself to the next level, that next level requires pretty intense self-reflection. And you make that change, then everything around you is going to change because you're the one creating the reality that you exist in.
Yes.
Be excited for that next level of what your reality is
Yeah.
because it's going to feel better. It's going to make you feel more powerful. You're going to get more of what you want, but you can't do that unless you do this reflective piece.
That's great. Perfect advice. And I want to ask you too, you work with clients one-to-one.
I do.
And you also offer, give us, just sort of the scope of some of the services you have.
Well, when I work with people one-on-one, it's because we're in a 6-month or a 12-month program going after
Mhm.
some pretty big goals, right? Like
Mhm.
one woman I'm working with is going after taking your company from a 50 million to a $150 million company, right?
Great.
So that's an example there. But on the group coaching side, I love bringing groups of women together who are powerhouse business owners who are wanting to get rid of the emotional weight they've been carrying that's been altering their decisions, altering their confidence. So it's about the women that are like, I'm already pretty successful. I've made good money, but I know there's something more for me here that I haven't even tapped into yet. Because most of these
Right.
women, I would say, haven't tapped into the last 30% of where they could actually go. And so that's what the group program is all about. And it's a 90-day program. We have weekly calls. They get private one-on-one time with me. And every single week on the call, we do the work so that there's no homework. There's no, extra work that has to be done.
Awesome. And that's information's on your website.
Yes. Yes. Information.
Okay. Great. All right. So before we close for today, what's next for you, Annie?
So what's
Any big
next
projects?
is the group coaching program that's going to be launching here in July. So July 23rd is when that launches and takes off. And then from there, I'm going to be running a women's group out to Dubrovnik, Croatia next May,
Ooh,
which will
nice.
be like a breakthrough experience while we explore Croatia together. Because I'm like, what could be better than being in a beautiful seaside town in Europe while we have massive breakthroughs in business together?
I might like to check that out. That sounds exciting.
I just was there. I was there in June, and it was the most glorious experience. I was just like, every woman
Here,
needs
it's
to have this
beautiful.
experience. It is gorgeous.
That's
Yes.
awesome. Okay, so before we say goodbye, last question. What does mojo mean for you, and how do you hold on to your mojo?
So I think mojo means for me doing life at the pace that works for you and makes you feel lit up. So for
Mm.
me, it's all about being a lighthouse of energy, joy, goodness, and only making decisions from a place of that joy and overabundance. So my mojo is like, I got to be on my own pace. I've got to make sure that I'm living in joy, making decisions from joy, and that when I show up, I'm a lighthouse to help other people see their own light.
Beautiful. Awesome. I think that's a great place for us to land. Annie, thank you so much for joining me
Thank you
today.
for having me. It was so much fun.
Our audience and
I love it.
your
Thank
your
you for everything you do.
Oh, same. I love you. And I look forward to really doing some things with you in the future. So thanks
Okay.
again for being here. And thank you, all of you, for listening week after week. It's great to have you spend time with me. And I know that this conversation was a blessing in some way. And so if it was, share it with someone else because they probably need it too. All right, Annie, I thank you again. Talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon.